Happy Saturday morning, everyone. Jan Edwards with Paving the Way here doing our Saturday morning live recap. So I'm going to start tagging a couple of people. Because I know when you start to do this early in the morning or when you start to do this, you want to tag people and invite them on. So that's what I'm going to do. I hope everybody slept well last night and you have lots of things planned for today to keep you busy, to keep you safe, to keep you healthy. Sleep has been, for some people it's been really a challenge, and for others, because my days are full, so I've been sleeping like a baby. Not everybody has that gift. I don't have busy brain anymore, so it's really easy for me to get good sleep and good rest. I hope y'all did the same. So, tagging some people who want to join me because they add so much to the conversation when you join your friends in. Yep. Okay, just a couple of more. All right. Okay. Hey, Flower. How are you this morning? Hey, Philip. So I'm going to recap what we covered this week and go in just a little deeper. Not a whole lot, but just enough that it gives you a little bit more. So we talked about on Tuesday, we debunked 3 myths. We debunked trafficking requires movement. We debunked trafficking versus smuggling. And we debunked money has to be exchanged for it to be considered trafficking. All right. So trafficking does not require movement. There are children that are trafficked right here. They go to school. They get picked up by their pimp. They're abused for several hours and they're dropped off and brought back home. So it doesn't require movement from point A to point B. It doesn't require movement across state lines. It doesn't require movement across county lines. It doesn't require movement from country to country. Okay, so that's myth 1 debunked. Trafficking versus smuggling. Smuggling, both are illegal. But a lot of times what happens, as we know and we've heard from our friends down the southern borders, is that, America is the promised land. We promise things. There are things that are being told to families in villages, and it sounds really beautiful. And then families that have 5, 6, 7, 8 kids end up going, yes, send my oldest son or send my oldest daughter. And the next thing you know, there's children coming across borders that have no parents. They have uncles, right? Smuggling is when people are literally scooped up and taken across. Both illegal. One, people are slightly aware of what's happening. Others, it's not until it's too late. So that's the second myth. Money has to be exchanged hands, not the truth. The FBI just watched I Am Jane Doe the other night, and the FBI estimated at the time of the making of that film there were 1.6 million runaways, and they interviewed over half of them. And over half of them said that they exchanged sex for lodging, they exchanged sex for food, they exchanged sex for transportation, and they exchanged sex for safety. So no money was exchanged hands. Nobody gave them money and had sex with them. They provided something else in exchange of money. Now then, most times what people don't understand is when these girls are trafficked, they're collecting the money. They never get to keep any of it. The pimp gets all the money. One child's worth close to $250,000 a year. That's why it's such a lucrative business and why we're out to educate our children, their parents, and our communities so they know what's happening. That's the most important piece, is for them to really understand there is no glamorous life associated with this. It might start out that way. They may be recruiting them, and they may be grooming them. They may take them out to dinner. They may take them and go get their nails done. They may take them get their hair done. However, That's all part of the grooming process to create trauma bonding, such that the young people feel connected to that person that's treating them well. They may come from a lower socioeconomic environment, and so getting their hair and nails done is a real treat other than prom, right? That's when everybody got their hair done, is prom or homecoming. Well, they're getting their nails done every 2 weeks. They're getting their hair done once a month. That's a whole different ball game, and that's how these predators, that's how these traffickers lure our girls in and keep them there. They start to trauma bond them. So they give them what they want. There was a line that one of the pimps said, it's like we offer them heaven and then they'll follow us all the way to hell. That's the kind of trauma bonding they do. Because remember, the prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed yet, and they know that. Okay, so that's what we debunked on Tuesday. Now then, Wednesday we talked to Jordan Rodriguez of Seminole County. He was the principal of Rock Lake Middle when we went in and educated about 350 of his students, and then he's now the principal of Seminole County. And he was on, and we demoed 3 myths. One was, it can't happen to me. The second one was, trafficking is only commercialized sex or only sex. And then it happens only in person, like nothing happens online, okay? So here we go, debunking those 3 myths again. The it can't happen to me. He gave an example of a, straight A, IB, high-level student. They were going to graduate at 17, graduate really, really early. And they ended up lying. And they told Jordan that, yep, I lied. So here's this perfect kid lying. So it's just part of teenagers. It's just part of growing up. We want to see what we can get away with. Hey, Dustin, we want to see what we can get away with. Hey, Crystal, as teenagers. And the predators know this. So having them lie or having them do something out of the ordinary, hi, Ray, hey, Kat, is what would have them practice. It's like, oh, well, just do this one thing. Okay? And the it can't happen to me. So the it can't happen to me thing, I got to tell you, there was a family up in Lake Mary, good family, good mom and dad, family of means, and one of the little girls decided to get high and got caught. Well, she got put in a foster home, a group home for rehabilitation. And one of the girls there recruited her, said, well, if you still want to get high, my boyfriend has a friend, right? Introduced her to this friend, and the next thing you know, they're trafficking her. Now she's 14. She brings in she brings in her sister. So this guy's trafficking both sisters. And with a very short period of time, they don't want to do that anymore. And the bottom girl, we heard Maurice Edwards talk about the bottom girl on Wednesday. That's the top girl for the pimp. She drugged her and overdosed her, and she died. And she and the pimp dropped her off at ORMC. I was actually at the courthouse for the bottom girl's sentencing. And I was there with the mom, and I was there with the sister. So that it can't happen to me isn't the truth. These predators know exactly what your children like because it's all over their social media. They post it all the time. They post their favorite foods. They post their favorite movies. They share everything. Hey, Joe. Yay, I'm glad you're on here. We're talking about debunking the myths of human trafficking. Absolutely, Tangela. I am out. I am committed, safe harboring or not. I am committed that our families know, because now more than ever, we have more children online having to do their homework, which leaves them very susceptible to being recruited into trafficking. So that it can't happen to me myth, and the kids going, well, I wouldn't be that stupid. And so look, we've educated over 13,000 kids. So I've had a couple of conversations with them. And what they say is, I ask, how many people are friend requests are you getting on a weekly basis? Hey, Sana, on a weekly basis of people you don't know. And they're getting anywhere 15, 20, 25 friend requests a week from people they don't know. And until I came in and shared with them some of these stories, they were accepting every single friend request. The moment you accept every single friend request, your child's putting themselves at risk. Because the moment they complain online, my mom did this, my best friend did that, my boyfriend broke up with me, blah, 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 whatever it is they want to complain about, these predators look for that. And then all of a sudden they start a conversation. Yeah, my mom did the same thing to me. Or, boy, yeah, I remember when my boyfriend dumped me. Or, gosh, I'm so sorry your boyfriend dumped you. You're so beautiful. How could he have done that to you? You know, bonding that way. And it happens intentionally and it happens over time. So when kids think, oh, no, that can't happen to me, when we ask them, you're welcome, Christy, when we ask them, did they get friend requests and were they having conversations with people they didn't know? They all said yes. So that's the debunk right there of it can't happen to me. Hey, Yvette, trafficking is only sex or commercialized sex. Now, we're going to talk about labor trafficking. We talked a little bit about that last night with Tomas. So trafficking is only sex. Hey, Joffrey, or commercialized sex. So trafficking is anything. So the definition of trafficking, and you can look this up, and this is really good homework that you can look up with your kids, okay, or your friends, because there's the legal definition. It's very long. It's a long paragraph. I'm not going to bore you and read it, but the bottom line is, hey, Jill, the bottom line is it takes force, fraud, or coercion. That's that's the definition of trafficking. And then child exploitation takes that even further, all right? Now, hey, Jeremy, in the United States, we have the safe harbor law. We know that children under the age of 18 would not choose to do the things they're doing. Now, when I have that conversation with the youth, I say, when someone tries to manipulate you or coerce you, and they all kind of look at me and I'm like, no, hang on. I go, I'm not talking about homework or chores. And they all kind of giggle, right? Yeah. I said, I'm talking about when someone says, hey, take off your shirt and take a picture. The moment a child does that, that puts them at risk. And the moment child backs up and says, I don't want to do this anymore, they're like, fine, not a problem. That picture you sent me, I'm going to share it out on the internet. And that's the coercion. That's the manipulation that we start talking about. Hey, Kathy. And then they all start to go, oh, like you can see the realization wash over them about the manipulation that happens and how quickly it happens. So there's domestic servitude, there's, gardeners, maintenance, babysitting not being paid. That's not commercialized sex. And I know y'all have seen the young kids with the big tubs of, big plastic tubs of stuff you can buy for $5, whether it's candy bars, candles, any of that kind of stuff. And they have some kind of something in, a little lanyard with information on it. And they have something in plastic, that says the organization they work for. That's labor trafficking. And here's how that works. Some nice looking, nicely dressed individual comes into neighborhoods and offers to bring their kids and pick them up at 7 a.m., drop them off at 7 p.m. during spring break, during summer, during Christmas break, to go sell things. They're going to learn skills. At the end of the summer, if they do really well, they might win a trip to SeaWorld. Sign here. The moment the parent signs that piece of paper, it actually is it's a legal binding contract, even though they're underage. The parents gave permission for that child to go do that. That's why DCF has the hardest time catching these people. They're very smart. The moment they start to get wind of something, they literally go on eBiz and form another company. These people are very, very smart. And so they pick them up at 7 for sure. And then they take them to McDonald's and they feed them, because they promised to feed them. They're like, you pick 2 items on the dollar menu, and then they charge them $5. And then they drop them off in a neighborhood, and they charge them money for water. They charge them money to get picked up. They charge them money to go to the bathroom. So by the end of the day, they might make $10, maybe. And they get picked up to do it again. Now, when I ask kids, especially in underserved communities, this question, I said, I got a question for you. I said, if that was you, if that was your situation, knowing that I'm your mom, I'm trying to feed 2 to 3 kids, I'm working 2 to 3 jobs, trying to keep food on the table, the lights on, are you going to say anything to me? And they all shake their head no. Because they already consider themselves a burden. And that just breaks my heart. It's like our kids don't understand how important they are. And so they won't tell their parents what's happening because they don't want to burden their parent. And that's when I let them know, it's like, look, I don't care what you do. Your parents love you. And being blackmailed and being abused. So now your parents might have a reaction, okay? They're angry, but they're not angry at you. They're angry at these people that took advantage of not only me as the parent, but you, my child. There is nothing in this life worth being blackmailed for. Your parents love you. And you can see, like, I watch it wash over these kids and they start to really understand that they're being taken advantage of. And they start to really think about, well, what could I do to get out of that situation? And that's why we're having this conversation, is I want to give you data. I want to give you information. You'll look all these things up on Google or Safari or Yahoo or whatever format you use so you can actually start the conversation with the kids. Now, this is our other favorite. It only happens in person. Well, yeah, trafficking does happen in person. But there's also this thing called online exploitation. And I'm sure many of you have seen the articles where the police are concerned about, because we've got more and more of our kids online doing homework, that predators are going to be online too. They might be offering tutoring services. They might be offering, online classes to catch you up. There's all kinds of things. Remember, these people are very smart. They're not stupid, as Maurice said the other night. And so all it takes, again, like we talked about before, is me sharing, I hate algebra, or I hate my mom because she made me do this, or my boyfriend's being a jerk, or whatever. And those people, those predators, they scoop right on in and they start to trauma bond. And they start to bond. And they start to tell them how beautiful they are, how smart they are, how handsome they are. Because that's all we want to hear. All we want is, all of us just want to belong. We all just want to be loved. And they know that, and they take advantage of it. And so they start to ask kids to do things online. That's why Pornhub is spiking. We're doing everything we can in Washington. Jill Cohen's on here, and I know she works very closely with people in Washington, D.C. to take down things like Pornhub. There's a lot of us, that a lot of people in this fight that worked really hard to block Backpage and Craigslist from personal ads, because they were exploiting our children with pictures, enticing people to buy children to have sex. And that's what's happening. And you don't have to be in person to exploit a child. You can exploit a child online with pictures and videos. And the moment that picture leaves that child's phone, they can never get it back. And that's what we talk about with the kids. It's like, look, the moment you take that inappropriate picture, that's now the creation of child pornography. The moment that picture leaves your phone, that is distribution of child pornography. The moment that picture hits your phone, that's possession of child pornography. Sexting is illegal in the state of Florida. There's a statute. I actually put it on my website. There's a statute. It carries a class 1 misdemeanor all the way up to a class 3 felony if you're caught and convicted. And when I share that with the youth, you can only imagine how squirmy they get. Hey, Aaron, you can only imagine how squirmy they get. So it can only happen in person. That's that myth debunked. Okay. And one of the things that, is really great about this level of education, our kids remember. There was a little girl that was in my training at Rock Lake Middle School. And, we talked about this and I gave the example. A week later, somebody tried to get her to take a picture and send it to them via her phone. They found her on the phone. And she said no. She went immediately to her parents. They went immediately to Jordan and went immediately to law enforcement. And she said, because of Miss Jan's training, I knew what to do. So our kids actually pay attention. Our kids are listening to what we say. It may not look like it. They may be looking at their phones and looking down. And I promise you, they're paying attention and they listen, especially when you're talking about something like this. Of the 350 kids that we educated, we went back and did some follow-up research 5 months later, 5 months. 65% of those kids that we surveyed, which was about 150 of them, said, hey, Sam, said they shared what they learned with their parents or a friend. That's huge. To get a 12-year-old to talk about anything is challenging enough, as some parents know. But to have them talk about this kind of topic, that's a miracle. So our kids want this information. They hear about it. It's in the periphery. They want to understand too. Hey, Nancy. They want to understand too. And that's why we're doing these conversations. Hey, Allie. That's why we're doing these conversations. Okay, this is real. This is happening. And we want you to know. All right. So then we talked to Maurice. Hey, Caroline. Then we talked to Maurice Edwards, sheriff from Seminole County. I'm going to take a little drink of water. And we debunked the myths. Buyers are always men. Hey, Gilbert. Kids are kidnapped by people in white vans. And traffickers and predators only victimize people they don't know. So we debunked those 3 myths. So the buyers are always men. He said, remember we talked about the bottom girl. That's so there's a pimp. He has what's called a stable, and then he has his bottom girl. Hey, Julie Marr. So the bottom girl is the one that helps him recruit other girls, and also is the one that helps keep them in line. Now then, the bottom girl, once they book a date, that's what it's called, a date, the bottom girl will sometimes go with the girl, especially if, I think he called it a 2-girl special. So when they want a 2-girl special, so you've got a girl bring in another girl to be purchased for sex. So buyers are men, and sometimes there are women that want to buy girls or boys. So he said, hey, Aileen, so he said there's about 30 to 40% of buyers that are female. So it's not just male. Hey, Amy. Good morning, Amy Goodman. 2, kids are kidnapped in white vans. Sorry, Caroline. Kids are kidnapped in white vans. Well, that's not the truth either. He said Maurice said less than 10% of kids are kidnapped are taken into trafficking. Mostly trafficking is a localized or statewide event because pimps keep their stables where they can manage them. And sometimes they travel. Sometimes they do take them down to things like the Super Bowl and over to WWE and up to, NASCAR racing. They do travel with the girls, but they bring them right back home. And they keep them where they can watch them. So the kids being kidnapped, that's not how that happens. The recruitment and grooming is intentional and over time, either in person or online. Occasionally, there will be children that will be kidnapped, but that's not how it's done. And it's not in white vans or black vans. The scooping up of children is very rare. Okay? Now then, the third one. Traffickers and predators only victimize people they don't know. Well, that's not the truth either. Maurice and I talked about approximately, right? Because the thing about this crime is it's really hard to get good data. That's one of the things that we've all been working on, is getting good data, because victims don't think they're victims. Because remember, they've been recruited and groomed and manipulated over time to believe that these people believe them and they trust them and they love them. It's called trauma bonding. Okay, so a lot of these girls and little boys don't know that they're being victimized. They think this is just a way of life, especially back to debunking the myth of that predators and traffickers victimize people they don't know. Approximately 60% of people that are trafficked by a family member. Aunt, uncle, mom, dad, sibling. So it's not some stranger traumatizing these children. It's someone they know and someone they trust. And that's the biggest hurt of all, is you've got someone who's supposed to love you hurting you. There's several survivors that we know that were trafficked by their moms for drug money. Several of them trafficked by their husbands. So it's not done by people they don't know. It's actually done by people that they know, they love, and they trust. And that makes the trauma and the breakaway even harder. And that's why we're talking about this. That's why we do prevention work. because we're committed that fewer and fewer children are subjected to that level of trauma. Okay, that's why we keep having this challenging conversation, because it is challenging. Okay, the last and final myths that we debunked, and we debunked them last night with Tomas. It only happens in people of low means or underserved communities. Not the truth. The story I shared earlier about the family from Lake Mary. They were a family of means. The thing about human trafficking, it knows no socioeconomic, no demographic, no geographic boundary. Okay? So demographic knows no age boundary. There's several survivors we know here in town that were trafficked around the age of 45. So it knows no age boundary. Demographic, that's demographic. Sociographic, it can happen in Winter Park as much as it could happen in Pine Hills. It can happen in Windermere as much as it can happen out in Bithlow. There is no socioeconomic. Now then, given that there's some challenges happening right now, the stimulus money is going to go so far. We've got people being furloughed and laid off, and we've got other companies that are hiring, and the income may not be as high. Predators are going to know this, and they're going to prey on our children, and they're going to prey on people because they know this. They know people are struggling financially, and they're going to offer a way out. And if that happens to anyone you have them call 911 immediately. You have them call the police. You have them call the 800 number. Because we don't want anyone sucked into this nightmare. Really, anyone. Hey, Holly. Okay? So we covered socioeconomic, we covered demographic, we covered geographic. Knows no boundary. Every single person listening to this video could be a possible victim. I have a friend of mine. He's yes, I'm going to wash my hands after I wipe my nose. He's a PI, and he was on his way to Vegas. And he was sitting in the outside chair. This guy's real big. And he was sitting on an outside chair of the exit row, and there was a, groovy dude, I call him, on the inside, and then an older man in the middle. And the groovy dude's having a conversation. If you weren't paying attention, you would have thought that he was talking to the older man. But my friend, who's a private investigator and recovers victims all the time, was listening with a very keen ear. And the guy's like, yeah, I think we're going to go to, we've got to roll up to the Bellagio in an Escalade, not a Tahoe. We've got to go get some shoes at Ferragamo. We've got to get, we've got to go get suits at wherever as we roll up to the Bellagio. And, the old man was just sitting there, and he just was looking down, just shaking his head like this. Clearly not being engaged in the conversation. Well, my friend got up, said something to the flight attendant. And when they landed, they kept everybody in their seats, came and got the older guy. He was trafficking this older man who was in his 70s for his money. The guy had threatened his family so he could use his money. So age knows no age boundary. And it's not always about sex, but it is always about the money. Kat asked about having resources for tough conversations about talking to young boys about porn. Ooh. Kat, I will put some links in the thread after I go live, but there's a really great organization called People Not Porn, and they have amazing resources on there. Porn's a whole different conversation, and this woman's one humble opinion. Hey, Clarissa, this is my opinion. It's one of the highways right into trafficking. Porn is highly addictive. It alters people's brain patterns. And it can become very dangerous. And, we've all seen, I love that man, Sheriff Grady. We've all seen Sheriff Grady do those busts down in Polk County. And these people think they're coming to have sex with children. And when they've talked to them, it's like they started watching porn. They start watching light, soft porn, and it gets darker and darker and darker. And then watching it isn't enough anymore. And they've got to go do something. They've got to go take an action, which leads into human trafficking. So People Not Porn, Kat's the best resource I can think of, and I'll post a couple of articles on here too. Okay, you're welcome. All right, so the people of low means, underserved communities, right? That's debunking that myth right there. It only happens to undocumented foreign nationals. They're only at risk. Not true. And Tomas was talking last night about a group of 63 labor traffickers that he had to get like 12 different agencies involved with to help rescue them. So it does happen to foreign nationals, but it's not just only foreign nationals. If you go back to the example I gave you with the labor trafficking and hiring these young kids to take the tubes, big buckets around filled with candles and candy and stuff you can buy at the dollar store. Okay, so it's not just foreign nationals or only foreign nationals. It does happen, and it's not an only. That's debunking that myth. And the final myth is that it's hidden and it's not in plain sight. We go out and we talk to thousands of people. And Tomas gave an example last night that he had trained a spa online. And when he shared about the signs, when he talked about the, always having the guy in the back, always having the guy with the girl or the girls to get their nails done or get their hair done. And the girls are very submissive. They don't talk a lot. There's no aliveness in their eyes. When you're getting someone's nails done, y'all can see my eyes. I'm alive. I'm not dead. There's no deadness in my eyes. You can tell. And after the spa learned about that, they were like, oh my God, it's like it's right there in plain sight. Hey, Rick. And when I share stories with people, there was another friend of mine when I was sharing the signs to look for about the submissiveness, not looking up, not having a say, not carrying ID. Is she was walking on her friend had a little boat, like one of the boats you can go out and deep sea fish, and hey Rich, and as she was walking by, she saw two girls, like they were looking at the circular windows in a boat. They were looking out the windows, and like the look on their face was completely desperate, and they weren't saying anything, but it was just like they're. And she said, I kept walking by going, are they in trouble or are they okay? And this was 10 years ago. She goes, this was 10 years ago. She goes, and it's not left me because I didn't know what to do. And that's part of why we're doing this series too, is to inform you and educate you about what there is to do. So first of all, you want to have a conversation with your kids. That's the very first thing. Use this video, go online, say, hey, I learned this thing, right? I learned about human trafficking. I learned the average age is 12 to 14 in the state of Florida. I learned that the state of Florida is third in the nation for number of calls to the National Trafficking Hotline. What do you think about that? What do you know about that? So you want to share what you learned, all right? Second thing is, I actually want you to take an action, okay? I'm going to put the hotline number in my phone, but we want you to put the hotline number in your phone. Anytime you see something, anytime you suspect something, you call that number. Because look, we're all still going to the grocery store. We're all still going out to get gas. We're all still going to buy our toilet paper, which I have so many things to say about that and I won't. Right? We're still going occasionally outside to go do stuff. So if you see something, you want to take an action and do something. You're welcome, Rich. Totally my pleasure and my honor. Thank y'all for being on with me. Okay, you want to see something, you want to take an action, and you want to do something. I'll put both numbers in here. I'm going to turn my little thing around right here so I can type. So the hotline number, it's really easy to memorize. It's 888-373-7888. You want to put that number in your phone, and you want to keep that with you at all times. And look, I want to debunk this one myth about making that call, okay? What if I'm wrong? What if it's not trafficking? That's okay. Because every survivor I've ever spoken to has said, I wish someone would have made the call. And every time we speak, every time we go out into the community, I get a text, I get a Facebook message, I get some note within 30 days of someone saying, Jan, I called the number. I saw something weird. Yay, thanks, Caroline. I'm glad it's on your phone already. They'll send me a message and say, I saw something weird. It didn't feel right. I made the call. And that's the other piece too. Trust yourself. Trust your gut. Yes, Kat, that's the National Trafficking Hotline. I want you to trust yourself and I want you to trust your gut. You know when something's off. You know. Make the call. Now, most of you on here know me. I'm a little ballsy. So if I see something, I will go and make sure someone's okay. I've seen people on the side of the road. I've seen people, hey, Laura, I've seen people at convenience stores, and it doesn't look right. I just check in and then I make the call because I want to make sure that child is okay. Caroline says, I'll never forget the time I saw this woman at the Speedway and I wish I'd had the number in. Yeah. See, when you don't take an action, you remember. And that's why we're having this conversation. The more people we inform, the more people we educate, the more people we have taking action and having conversations with our children, first of all, our friends, our family, our neighbors, the more conversations we have, the more lives we can literally save. Because when someone's trafficked, this is trauma beyond anything you can even fathom because it's personal trauma. There's war trauma, watching and experiencing war, horrific. It's not always personal. These children are being sexually assaulted and raped every night, multiple times a night. That is personal trauma. And there is no getting over that. The brain's rewired. Things happen to them physically. And it takes decades to heal. Well, we can avoid all of that by actually having the tough conversation with our kids about what human trafficking is, the reality of it. And then that's not a life they want. It may sound good. They may be promised video games and purses and bags and hair done every week. It's not worth it. It's short term. And it's our job as the adults to be the bumpers in the bowling game of life, to ensure our children are aware, so they're educated, two, they're empowered, because we create a safe space for them to come talk to us. We create a safe space for them to share what's going on. And you start with this so that we can prevent them from being trafficked. That's the whole point of this series. And I'm super excited to share that starting the 13th, we're going to do it all over again, but in Spanish. I've got several mission ambassadors that are Spanish speakers, and they're going to cover these myths and a couple of other myths, because culturally there's other conversations to have, right? So they're going to cover these myths and the culturally appropriate myths for the Latin community, for them to be educated and for them to be knowledgeable. Hey, Jenna, hi, beautiful. So that's why we're doing this series. We're all sequestered at home. We're all at home with our families. We might as well take on some conversations we may not have had the time to do before. Hey, Laura, we may not have had the time to have this kind of conversation with our kids. Now we can. Now we can actually approach some interesting dialogue with them in a safe, open dialogue conversation, because the thing that kids are most afraid of, Jordan said this, Tomas said this, is our kids are petrified of disappointing us. They'll take the yelling all day long. But what they don't want is they don't want us to be disappointed in them. And it's our job to let them know, yep, we might be disappointed, but I'd rather be disappointed and have you alive and well and living a great life than somewhere where I don't know where you are, than to be abused and assaulted in a way that, harms you for the rest of your life. So let's avoid that disappointment and have this conversation and let them know it's okay to fail. It's all right to fail. That's how we learn. I've got a bunch of entrepreneurs on here, right? Every single entrepreneur will say it's the failures that taught them how to succeed. So we want to create that safe space for our kids to let them know it's okay to fail. That's why we're here. And we want them to fail under our roof so we can walk with them and guide them on that path. Okay, it's 11:42. I don't know if anybody has any questions. I want to have this done. Anne, I love you. I want to have this completed by 11:45. So if anybody has any other questions, I'm going to put people not porn in here. People not porn. That's the website that you can go learn about pornography. Okay, give everybody a little minute or two because sometimes I lag. You'll see the question before I will. If y'all don't have any other questions, we start back again on Monday night. I've got Renata. She worked with the Department of Juvenile Justice, and the myths we're going to debunk on Monday are it's only youth that are having trouble at home are the most susceptible. We're going to debunk the myth that only runaways are at risk and boys can't be trafficked. That's the other myth. Is the virtual cities, yes, the virtual series is totally appropriate for kids. We don't say anything, but you want to sit with them, Kat. You definitely want to sit with your kids while you're watching it, because that's part of the piece. It opens up dialogue. One of our mission ambassadors, hey Heather, one of our mission ambassadors was on with her daughter, and she said it opened up a completely different conversation that they hadn't had in a long time about internet safety and online safety. So, you can watch it with them. We tried to keep them short. They're anywhere between 15 and 20 minutes, so they're bite-sized pieces. This is the longest one on Saturday because it's a recap. Yeah, so the Vegas scenario, how was the young guy trafficking the older gentleman? Raul, he threatened his family as part of a gang, threatened his family, and he was trafficking, he was using the older man's money to go do what he wanted to do using threats, fraud, and coercion for the family. Trafficking involves, for an adult, force, fraud, or coercion. And that's what he was doing with that older man. So it doesn't always involve commercial sex, and it doesn't always involve money exchanging hands. Kids can be utilized for sex, for shelter, for food, and for transportation. And we covered that, Raul, earlier this week. I think it was it was Tuesday with me. Okay. All right. Does anybody else have any other questions? It's 11:45. I want to honor my word and your time. Thank you so much for joining me today. It makes it so much easier because I'm talking to you, but I'm only seeing me. So it really makes a difference when y'all are on. So I have someone to talk to and share this information with. I hope this has been helpful. God bless you all. Please stay safe, and we'll see you Monday night. Bye.